Well, folks, CEO Tony Hayward, now the face of BP, appearing in a national television ad campaign promising to make things right. This as the president visits the Gulf this afternoon. President Obama is trying to clean up his image as well. We'll either be successful on this issue. We've got team coverage for you right now. Peter Barnes is joining us from the White House. First, though, I want to start with Adam Shapiro on the future of Tony Hayward as the CEO of BP. You just mentioned it earlier in the show. On the call this morning, a lot of criticism being thrown at him. What did he have to say?
Well, a lot of people are angry with Tony Hayward because when they hear him say certain things like, we're responsible, we'll take, responsibility for all of this, they think they're being spun. And here's why. One of the quotes during this whole thing, he said, I understand people want a single answer about why this happened and who's to blame. It is simply too early to say where fault lies. So on one hand, you have him saying we're responsible. On the other hand, it's too early to say where fault lies. Then you get what he announced today. And I want you to hear it word for word because they're splitting the company. Well, it sounds like it. They're creating a new company to deal with cleaning up the spill so that Mr. Hayward can go back to his life and run BP and drill for oil. His exact words right now.
For this reason, we're going to create a separate standalone organisation to manage the ongoing and long-term business response. The new organisation will be focused on the response, while the rest of the company focuses on delivering our strategy.
Okay, delivering the strategy is drilling for oil. The business response is a fancy way of saying the cleanup. So you're going to have this new company, this new entity, standalone, he said, on its own. But does that perhaps pave the way? Because they're talking, you heard Jeff Locke say, they're talking down on the coast that BP's getting ready to pull a snickeroo on people, and maybe this was it.
It makes me wonder, James, if it's still not the lawyers, and that's what BP has been criticized for, that the lawyers are actually the ones pulling the strings at the company.
I guess I would say it's just too early to tell. I would certainly say in a situation like this, and I've seen it in the financial institutions, you do want to ring fence the problem, have people focusing on the problem, but you need the rest of the company to get back to work. And if BP is going to be responsible and is going to make good on all these payments, then this company is going to need to make an awful lot of money. So again, it's too early to tell if this is a legal game. It certainly might be. Too early to tell if what liability will flow through to the good co, bad co. But at the end of the day, you do want BP getting back to work in addition to focusing on the bad co.
Okay, but you can within BP, you can set up a division. Why are you setting up a standalone entity to do this if you're not laying the groundwork to cover your hiney at the end of the day from legal liability?
Because, and this is something that Peter Barnes knows too well, he's with us at the White House right now, Peter, is that you've got a criminal and a civil investigation against BP right now by the administration. So you have basically our own government lawyering up at this point, ready to maybe take a financial chunk out of BP and maybe save their own image.
Oh, absolutely. Listen, I mean, I disagree with James. I think that the lawyers are in charge right now. You have obviously the operational side of this going on with BP down in the Gulf to try to stop the spill, plug the spill, get as much of the oil up as possible. But you also, this is now a big legal fight that is brewing. As you recall, Attorney General Eric Holder was down there for the administration side earlier this week. Lined up with a team of lawyers at a press conference, and he announced that the criminal and civil investigations have been launched, and there are going to be a lot of charges filed in this, definitely civilly and potentially criminally.
James, I mean, he's saying that you're absolutely wrong, and it makes sense from what Adam's reporting. It makes sense that the company they're gearing up for a fight. They know that they could be wiped out as a company, the fourth largest company on the earth. Wiped out, but not impossible to think about.
Not impossible to think about, and rather than defend myself, I'd simply say it's a soundbite, it's a hint of what might be going on, and by all means, I just think it's too early to tell.
But as an investor, James, you've got to have your eye on this, though.
And I certainly...
It's taken the sector down.
It's taken the sector down, and certainly BP's going to have an awful hard climb, assuming they can survive.
And look, if you're an investor and you're looking at what do I do with my BP shares and what do I go to BP, they won't commit right now to their dividend decision. Heinrich, the chairman, says we'll deal with that in July when we look at the second quarter. They're not going to commit to a dividend. They're also not committing to how much is this going to cost you. They were asked point blank, what are you anticipating? Now, in the back room of British Petroleum, they have a contingency plan. In the Wall Street Journal today, they said they didn't have a contingency plan for this kind of catastrophe in the Gulf. But they have a worst-case scenario legal plan in place for down the road. And does that plan include splitting?
I go back to Peter on this one because remember it was the criticism of BP's first appearance, the North American CEO in front of Congress, was that he was speaking lawyer speak. He was overcoached completely by the attorneys of the company. You say that too.
They were all pointing fingers at each other. It was the CEOs of Transocean, high level, not the CEOs, but the high level executives from BP, Transocean, and Halliburton, one of the subcontractor on this. There are other subcontractors out there, and absolutely no question about it. The lawyers were behind all of that, and they were all pointing fingers at each other as they start to play to get themselves positioned legally for the big money fight ahead. And I will just add that I read one estimate from Cumberland Advisors yesterday that this will ultimately cost BP, and I'm not sure if this includes the other companies, at least $12.5 billion, probably more.
And BP is insured, self-insured.
Well, I mean, insured for now, but they're a company for now. We'll see how this all shakes out. Peter Barnes, thank you very much for weighing on this one, and Adam Shapiro had great reporting on this story. More about him later on. And best guest time. Just a reminder, you can read everybody's best guess and latest commentary at CasoniExchange.com. And I'm going to put some stuff up over the weekend, behind-the-scenes stuff from today, and find me at Twitter, at Cheryl Casoni on Twitter. All right, guys. Adam, I'm going to start with you. Best guest time on a Friday. What you got?
I think BP in a couple of years won't be BP. I think they're going to change their name. I just think there's not a PR recovery from this disaster. Maybe they go back, you know, they own Amoco, so maybe they become Amoco. But I think BP in the States, toast.
And you kind of base your thinking a little bit, right, on the announcement of the second company. It does beg the question.
I was thinking this yesterday because this was my best guess the other day, but then I changed it to this company's not going to be around. But I got to tell you, how do you recover public relations-wise? I just don't think you do. I think you change the name.
Yeah, James, what you got for today?
Well, we talked a lot about oil and BP, as we should have. There's also trouble in Korea, north and south. There's trouble in the Middle East. There's a European sovereign debt crisis, and now we have our own bad jobs numbers. So my advice to the retail investors is start taking some money off the table, because this is not a Leslie Nielsen movie.
Now you say that.
There's not a Leslie Nielsen movie.
James,
There's stuff to see out there.
James, if I had more time, I'd start disagreeing with you, but I gotta go. Oh, but come on. My best guess will go on my blog, CasoniExchange.com. It's on BP as well. Folks.